Those in opposition, if we can make some room at the table here, please, for opposition. Good. Please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. Gina De Silva with the California Immigrant Policy Center. With all due respect to the author, we must oppose AB 82 because it could lead to more deportations as a result of the continued implementation of AB 60. CIPC and ACLU are leading the statewide implementation of AB 60, and we've learned a lot about how ICE uses the DMV database to get information about undocumented individuals. We believe that if AB 82 is implemented, the floodgates would open and ICE could get their hands on information that is not available to them today. We appreciate the effort from the author and sponsor on amendments pertaining to an MOU with the DMV about transferring information to USCIS and potentially ICE. But that amendment is counterintuitive as it relates to USCIS since they oversee naturalization, not enforcement. And for ICE, this will have absolutely no effect since federal statutes prevent barring this type of immigration-related information to federal agencies. Undocumented immigrants typically don't have Social Security numbers, and a person's immigration status may be inferred by the absence of that number. Right now, ICE needs specific information about a person they're looking for and can't go on a broad fishing expedition in the California DMV database. But once Selective Services gets that information, it'll be easy for any agency like ICE to come in and request information for everyone without a Social Security number. And ICE could essentially get a target list of names and addresses for all individuals without a Social Security number. Selective Services has a privacy statement on their website that says they can share information with up to a dozen different agencies and the general public. Again, the MOU has no effect whatsoever, and we suspect the proponents went the direction of the MOU because all experts agree we can't have a real legal firewall codified in state statute to protect this population, or we would have done that in AB 60 or the subsequent fixes like AB 1660 and the Transportation Trailer Bill in last year's budget. This legislature and our governor have tirelessly worked to protect the privacy of Californians applying for AB 60 license. Whether it was removing a required affidavit, which like AB 82 would have also led towards deportations, or minimizing the required marking to comply with the Real ID Act to ensure that we can keep a person's immigration status private. If AB 82 is implemented, all these protections fly out the window. This bill would make it easy for the private information of undocumented immigrants who aren't able to serve even if there was a draft to be compiled by a federal agency that has zero connection to the severe local and regional trauma and impact of deportations and separation of families. Family separation and deportations that could result from the capturing of information or from the opt-out scheme that could lead to an investigation by the Federal Department of Justice. We do not believe it is appropriate to require the DMV to carry out this intrusive federal mandate that federal law currently assigns to a federal agency. We do not believe that the same legislature that fought for protections for AB 60 applicants and passed the Trust Act would be interested in ramping up deportations again. President Obama's administration has deported more than 2 million people, over 100,000 which are Californian residents. And AB 82 by Assemblymember Garcia will erode protections that have kept community members safe. For those reasons, we ask for a no vote unless opt-in amendments are included. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Jim Lindberg on behalf of the Friends Committee on Legislation of California. We're a Quaker-based advocacy group, and we think it's wrong to deny people with religious objections to selective service registration to deny them of a driver's license or to force them to choose whether to ignore their religious convictions in order to get a driver's license. And so I really want to thank the chair and the author for recognizing that not every young male who applies for a driver's license does consent to registering with the selective service system, at least when they're applying for a driver's license, and for proffering amendments. Regretfully, we do remain in opposition. The California Constitution guarantees the right of privacy, unlike our federal Constitution, where it is implied and the result of case law. The arguments in support of the constitutional right to privacy in the voter guide included the right of citizens to know that when they provide information to a government agency for one purpose, it will not be used for another purpose. And we think that the only way to fully guarantee the privacy rights of young California males and to guard against the potential self-incrimination as a result of the DMV sending the names and contact info of those individuals who have declined to register is to either not participate in automatic registration or to make it an opt-in where the DMV only sends the records of those who genuinely consent to opting in to the Selective Service system. Opt-in is how we handle voter registration at the DMV. It's how we handle organ donations at the DMV. Opt-in is how we handle Selective Service registration on federal financial aid applications. And so, in essence, this bill is asking the state of California to go further than the federal government itself is willing to go. We would note that the legislature has rejected this bill since 2000, at least 6 times, and why we would not support a bill that made it opt-in, because we don't think that this is the kind of decision that should be made when a young person is standing in line at the DMV in order to get their first driver's license. We think we would be inclined to remove our opposition if it were made an opt-in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just briefly, Catherine Williams with the ACLU of California. We also have an opposed unless amended position. We've communicated that we'd remove our opposition with an opt-in amendment. There are a lot of other states that have taken an opt-in amendment. Idaho has a 95% compliance rate, New Hampshire 96, Iowa 99% compliance rate with an opt-in, with an opt-in for Selective Service registration on DMV applications. We feel this is a really reasonable amendment. It would remove our opposition and serves to alleviate a lot of the concerns that have been expressed today that we also share.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in opposition? Seeing none, bring it back to the committee. Any questions? Senator McGuire.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And good afternoon, Simon. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Just want to dive a little deeper on the issue of AB 60 and those AB 60 drivers that are on California roads. Talk about that because the concern continues to be a path of least resistance, if you will, for ICE and potential holds. Can you go into that a bit? I know that there are some concerns related to the analysis as well in making sure that it is, I'm going to speak for myself, still a challenge to be able to get that information as far as in the federal level. So can you go into that a bit?
On the AB 60, so I will start off with saying that early on, the opposition definitely came into my office on the 2 issues, on privacy connected to immigration status and potential deportations, and opt-in, opt-out were the 2 discussions that we had. And like a lot of us here, not just the folks here in opposition, securing this privacy, fighting for these immigrants' rights has been a top priority for, I would say, almost every person in this, on the dais here, and myself, including our sponsors like Naleo out there. And so the question was asked, can you share with us what you have uncovered, or what are how is AB 60 data being misappropriated, or is it being handed over? You know, because one of the promises we made, especially as I'm holding workshops in my district, is that we're going to make sure they're safe. I'm out there asking folks, please apply for this license, secure yourself, because you're going to be safe. That's a promise we made to them. And if that's not being followed through, I want to make sure we correct that, not in general for everything, not just on AB 82 or AB 60. And so I haven't seen it. I think there's been a lot of discussions of the potential and the data sharing that's out there. A concrete case I haven't seen, and I think we're all committed to protecting these immigrants' rights out there. On the opt-in, opt-out, I will say that when they came in, we didn't have an opt-in, opt-out option, and it was provided to me, pick one of the 2. It wasn't saying you have to pick this one. Later on, the game got changed on me, and I said, okay, opt-out is actually not our preference. We really want opt-in, and I was like, you know, originally it was like, we prefer this or that, but either one would be okay. So I felt like that part was changed. I will say with the Quaker group, he was not in the discussion, so I don't want to put words in his mouth. You were not in the discussions. I met with the ACLU and the immigrant groups, and so I'm not putting words in his mouth. Actually, I would exclude him from that discussion. And so I think one of the amendments we have here that the committee brought that we're taking on was discussed in the opposition, and they feel that the MOU, it's not strong enough or not good enough. It's not going to protect immigrant rights. We worked with the chairman on this amendment to try to make sure we get to that point where we're protecting them. We worked with staff to make sure we're getting to that point where we're protecting them, and we're taking that amendment today.
And if we can, through the chair here, and Assemblywoman, I know you've been working really hard on this issue, so I do want to say thank you on that. So on the opt-in versus opt-out, so what I'm hearing, and I want to make sure I'm clear, is that you would be open to taking a look at that. And I just wanted to see if you also had the same conclusion related to the numbers that were brought forward from other states that had an opt-out.
Opt-in versus opt-out, and when we talked about prices, and one of the pieces of the bill says that the cost will be covered by somebody else. And so initially it was pick one, we have a preference, but pick one. It wasn't pick this one. They did pick a preference. I'm not going to say it didn't, but it was pick one. And so when I'm trying to find the funding to get this done, the other one seemed a little more cost prohibitive to begin with.
Got it.
Any other comments? Senator Gaines.
Assemblywoman Garcia, I want to thank you for bringing this forward, but was wondering if maybe you could just clarify a little bit more for me on this opt-out. Is that an amendment that's been added, or is that in the body?
That's currently in the body of the bill. That's an amendment we took in the assembly as we were working with our assembly body there, because initially I didn't have any sort of opt option. And that's an amendment that we took in the assembly.
All right, so does that, I'm curious about the comments by the gentleman in reference to the Quaker or for religious reasons. You would still have the opportunity to opt out.
You opt out. There's also a statement in the application saying you have an opt out, including for religious reasons, in there. So you still have the opportunity to opt out.
Okay, would there be other reasons for which you could opt out?
Personal belief. And so that's stated there. It also states, what you forfeit, what you're forfeiting if you don't complete or you don't enroll in the selective services, and that's in your analysis. That's
Okay.
provided.
That
Senator,
helps me, thank you.
Senator Roth?
I had to step out for a minute, maybe I missed it. I'd like a little clarification on the concern about the undocumented population.
May I? No. Assemblywoman Garcia?
So,
If you would like to ask a question, you're welcome to, but it's not a free-for-all.
Yes.
so I'll let you, Pam, you can direct the question or take it. I mean, I'm looking at the analysis, and the bill makes implementation contingent on an MOU between the DMV and the Selective Service. That the Selective Service will not refer the personal information required for registration to Citizenship and Immigration Services, or ICE. So if that's the case, what's the concern among the community?
I think that it's an opinion of whether or not that does the job, and that is enough. And I think if you would have heard the testimony from the opposition, they're saying that that does not do the job. In discussion with committee consultants and the chairman, we felt that this was doing the job.
Well, is there any empirical data that suggests that data has been shared in other circumstances by the Selective Service or anyone else having to do with the documentation status of individuals?
I haven't, on AB 60, I've asked and I haven't seen it, because if there is being shared, I want to make sure we fix that. I think we all made a promise to our constituents that they would be safe. And so I've asked, I haven't seen it. I think we would all jump on the opportunity to fix that if it was out there.
Well, just speaking for myself, we like to make decisions based on empirical data and facts when we can, and not speculation or concern that is unwarranted. And that's why I asked the question. If there is some empirical data that supports your concern on that particular regard, those of you who are sitting there with the chair's permission, I'd like to hear it. Otherwise, I will be basing my decision based on the data as I understand it and the representations in the analysis as they have been made.
A brief response, please, just one.
Thank you. I would, say that we are within kind of the initial implementation of AB 60. There have been cases linked to where a person has been detained, after applying for an AB 60 driver's license. There are cases that we have seen, we have heard of that occurring. As far as empirical data, again, we're still kind of in the beginning of implementation. I would just say that our concern is that this bill would expand that potential because you're basically handing over a list of folks that have registered for a driver's license. Because they lack a social security number, you're automatically inferring their status, and that is being provided to ICE. Whereas now, ICE is able to access the information, but they can't just go on a fishing expedition. They're looking for a certain individual.
Well, my concern, of course, would be that at some point, hopefully in the near future, we fix this immigration situation in a positive way. And then we have a group of young adults who miss the opportunity to do what the law requires, which is register for the Selective Service and the draft, pass the age limitation, and then are denied subsequent benefits. I think that's the real danger here, that may even outweigh some of your concerns. And I think that's enough for me, Mr. Chair.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, Assemblywoman Garcia, would you like to close?
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Okay, do we have a motion on the bill? We have a motion. Secretary, call the roll.
The motion is due pass as amended and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Bell. Canela.
Aye.
Canela, aye. Allen. Bates. Bates, aye. Gaines. Gaines, aye. Galgiani. Galgiani, aye. Leyva. Leyva, aye. McGuire. McGuire, aye. Mendoza. Mendoza, aye. Roth. Roth, aye. Wachowski.
We have 8-0. We'll leave that bill on call. Mr. DeBobne, we have, this is hour 1.5, and this is our fourth bill.
I will be
So I
brief.
believe there's no opposition on your bill. If you would be brief, that would be great.
I have no speakers, and I will be brief. Mr. Vice Chair, members, I'm here to discuss AB 221, which establishes a DMV-led feasibility study that will look into the development of a digital driver's license mobile app. The goal of the feasibility study is to lead to a pilot program that will create a digital driver's license app. This would be a supplemental to a traditional driver's license, which we're not trying to replace with this bill. Currently, we have over 200 million Americans using smartphones. That's over 65% of the country. Simply put, Americans use their smartphones, and California is leading the way for almost every daily activity. Digital boarding passes to make a flight, Apple Pay and Google Wallet to make payments at local stores, DocuSign software to sign their financial and personal documents. This all shows that our phones have clearly become an essential everyday tool that we rely on. California is a world leader in technology and innovation, and this body has consistently been on the forefront of adopting new technologies to better provide services to our citizens. California has already enacted legislation to allow individuals to access their automobile insurance on their smartphones. A digital driver's license would be a similar step towards providing a more convenient and safer option for our constituents. I've appreciated the involvement and assistance of not only the DMV, the CHP, and numerous tech companies and tech associations in the process of drafting and developing this legislation. This bill passed the Assembly in a very bipartisan vote, and I respectfully ask your aye vote today to start this process.
All right, so no, briefly in support?
Yeah.
Tiffany Whiten on behalf of PayPal in support.
Thank
All
you.
right, any others in support? And any opposition? Oh, sorry, have you accepted the
I
committee
do,
amendments?
thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate this committee's staff for making those recommendations, and we look forward to working
All
together
right,
on this.
any in opposition? Questions of the committee? We have a motion by Senator Roth. Secretary, call the roll.
The motion is due pass as amended and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Bell. Canela.
Aye.
Canela, aye. Allen. Bates. Bates, no. Gaines. Gaines, no. Galgiani. Leyva. Leyva, aye. McGuire. McGuire, aye. Mendoza. Mendoza, aye. Roth. Roth, aye. Wachowski.
5-2, we'll leave that bill on call. Thank you very much. Any other authors here? All right, so those were the easy bills. We're going to get to the harder ones here. Do we have an author? Should we make the remaining ones 2 years bills? Yeah. Yeah, let's lift some calls. We'll start at the beginning and work our way through.
File item 1, AB 8 by Assemblymember Gatto. The motion is due pass as amended and refer to the Committee on Public Safety. The current vote is 6-0. Chair hasn't voted. Vice Chair voting aye. Bell. Allen. Galgiani.
Gatto, Bill number 1.
Galgiani, aye. Mendoza. Mendoza, aye. Roth. Roth, aye.
8-0, replace the call.
Oh, sorry,
Come on
9-0.
up. We're gonna run through. Or 9-0, replace the call. Just a second, Assemblymember.
File item 2, AB 82 by Assemblymember Christina Garcia. The motion is due pass as amended and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Current vote is 8-0. Chair hasn't voted. Vice Chair voting aye. Bell. Allen. Wajkowski. We'll replace the call. Want to continue? Okay. File item 4, AB 221 by Assemblymember DeBonne. The motion is due pass as amended and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Current vote is 5-2. Bell hasn't voted. Vice Chair has voted. Senators Bell, Allen, Galgiani, aye. Wajkowski.
6-2, replace the call.
File item 17, AB 1360 by Assemblymember Ting. The motion is due pass as amended and refer to the Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Communications. The current vote is 7-0. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Allen, Galgiani, aye. Mendoza, aye. Wajkowski.
9-0, replace the call.
And on the consent calendar, the motion is, or the current vote is 7-0. Chair hasn't voted. Vice Chair voting aye. Bell, Allen, Galgiani, aye. Mendoza, aye.
9-0, replace the call. Okay, at this point, we'll take on item number 6, AB 662. And what I'd like to do is try to keep the support, we'll do 2 at 2 minutes each, and the opposition 2 at 2 minutes each, and then the rest are me too. So, Assemblywoman?
Supposed to be voting in health right now, though I hope they'll hold the roll open for me. I'd like to begin by accepting the committee's amendments. They ensure the bill will be properly implemented and signed into law. I'm pleased to present AB 662. As amended, it requires all new commercial places of public amusement with an occupancy of 1,000 people or more a day to install an adult changing station for individuals with a physical disability. Commercial places of public amusement include auditoriums, sports arenas, and theaters. State regulations will appropriately determine the type of equipment to be used and specify specific accessibility standards. So the bill is not prescriptive. Rather, it is saying that we need to be able to accomplish this. All stakeholders could actively participate in the public regulatory process. Our society is changing. Today we have young people with physical disabilities, and our senior citizens are active and engaging in community life. They're participating in a variety of activities as sporting events, concerts, and other forms of entertainment. According to the 2014 report by the Department of Developmental Services, there are approximately 53,000 persons with physical disabilities that could benefit from an adult changing station. By expanding public restroom accommodations in large occupancy buildings, we're ensuring that people with physical disabilities and their families are given the dignity and basic human right to maintain their health and personal care needs. Today with me, I have 2 witnesses, Nicole Boslog, who's a board member of the Alive Consumer Action Committee, and Elisa Rosio, who's a resident of Concord, who brought me this bill idea and is here with one of her 2 teenage boys to give testimony today. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, Chairperson and committee members. I'm Nicole Boslog from Antioch, and I'm here today to speak in support of AB 662. Hello, Chairperson and committee members. As you can see, I'm a person that has some pretty significant physical needs, and like so many of my peers with disabilities like my own, I strive to be a contributing member of my community that leads a life as full and full of choices as anybody else. Sometimes, though, this is easier said than done. On my journey to lead a full life, I must plan my day around places that are accessible, and having restrooms I can actually use means not having accidents, not having to cut my day short, and not having to risk my personal dignity AB 662 would be a godsend in opening up much more of the world to me and all other Californians like me. Simply put, having the ability to use a changing table at places where there are lots of visitors and lots to do, like theaters and amusement parks, would enhance our lives. Open up places that everyone else enjoys and let us enjoy visits without having to risk our health in the process. So in closing, on behalf of myself, the developmental disability community, and the greater community of people with disabilities, please support Assembly Member Bonnier's bill, AB 662. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Please.
Mr. Chair and committee members, my name is Elisa Rosio, and I am in support of AB 662 because I wish for my sons, one who could not make the trip today because of the heat, the same rights as you and me. I could use my 2 minutes to persuade you. I choose to give you perspective instead. I start by asking, how many times have you used the restroom today since you left your home this morning? Did you ever once worry that somewhere in your day you might need to use the restroom and not have one available to you? My son got changed before our 90-minute drive today and will not be changed again until this hearing is concluded and we've driven the 90 minutes home, because there's nowhere here for him to use the restroom, and this is our norm. With the exception of school, everywhere we go does not have a bathroom that meets my son's needs. Would you drive and spend the day out if you knew there was not a single place for you to use the restroom? Would you be willing to put on a diaper and use it to go somewhere fun? For my sons, a fun day or a long day like today comes with sacrifice of becoming and staying soiled until we get home. And it is a travesty to assume that because someone does not have continence, they do not have cognition. Most, like my sons, are aware of their current circumstances and wonder if the people around them are as well aware. Their schools recognize that it is neither safe nor sanitary to go to school, and their IEPs provide them the accommodations they need for the long day. Many choose to stay home and stay silent, because who wants to talk about bathrooms? Veterans, the elderly, people with disabilities, all because they cannot use the bathroom in a public place. We choose to ask for the honor of dignified dependence and ask you to support us today in providing accommodations for changing facilities to the last group of people who I believe have been overlooked by our current ADA regulations, not by malice, but because of perspective. I urge you to vote yes on AB 662. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support, name, organization, your support, please.
Rebecca Gonzalez, National Association of Social Workers, California chapter, in strong support.
All right. Others in support?
I'll stick in from the side. Will Sanford, Futures Explored, the sponsor. We're in support.
Thank you. All name, organization, your support, please.
Daniel Savino, Association of Regional Center Agencies, 21 nonprofit regional centers serving over 280,000 people with developmental disabilities, also in support.
Thank you.
Nina Weiler Harwell, on behalf of AARP's over 3 million members in California, in support.
Thank you. Others in support? Okay. Opposition, please come forward. Let's limit it a couple of minutes for two people, then just me too's. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, I'm Matthew Harga with the California Business Properties Association, here unfortunately in opposition to the bill. We've been working with the author's office since, I think, November on this. We have some serious policy issues with the way the bill now stands. And I won't get into detail on them. I would just want to hit two quick policy issues on this. First of all, is the way that this bill was first written and was brought to us was requesting that buildings would install bathrooms that service severely disabled individuals. This include everything from full ADA handrails, a lot of things that are not currently mandated in the bill. To address cost concerns, which we appreciate, the bill has been narrowed down to just the changing table portion of this. We think that the legislature just focusing on one piece of a bathroom that is an integrated bathroom to service severely disabled individuals and putting that out in a public setting, whereas these types of bathrooms are normally in facilities that are meant to service a population of highly disabled individuals, that you're setting up ADA lawsuits that should be avoided. One other issue with this bill, and the witnesses talked about this bill applying to public places. This doesn't apply to all public places. For some reason, this bill has carved out public facilities at the University of California and CSU, but it does include other public facilities within the state. And we don't understand why the bill would try and treat private facilities and public facilities differently. We think if this legislature is going to move forward with such a policy, that this policy should apply to all occupancies that meet the definition within the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senators. I'm Bob Raymer, representing the California Building Industry Association. And if it would please the chair, I need to get a clarification on the amendments that are being taken. I was told by staff, the author's staff, that the committee staff proposal to remove the regulation portion of the bill was going to be taken, which, is that correct?
Yeah.
So you accept all the committee amendments?
I did at the beginning of my statement, yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Thank you for that clarification. Yes, we do have a concern. It's from an engineering and technical perspective. Simply having in statute a requirement for a table in a bathroom leaves open the issues of will this be overlapping any of the required path of travel area specified by the Americans with Disabilities Act and the state regs. That is something that can easily be corrected with regulations from the Division of the State Architect. More importantly, there needs to be some type of a mechanism or the ability to get the individual from the wheelchair to the table in a safe and controlled manner, and once the changing takes place, to return them in a safe and controlled manner. That is going to be the biggest part of any regulation that DSA would develop and adopt. Yet, with the bill as currently written or being amended, none of that would be addressed. While there's substantial cost to that, there's also the safety issue, and this does need to be addressed. So that concludes my comments. Thank you.
All right, anyone else in opposition, please state your name, organization, and your opposition.
Thank you. Teresa Cook on behalf of the California Travel Association and the California Attractions and Parks Association, respectfully opposed today. Thank you.
All right, anybody else in opposition? Questions of the committee? Senator Galgiani? Oh, sorry, Senator Roth.
One of the things that I wish that the bill did is I wish that it forced the state to comply with what you're asking the private to comply with, because I know in my district and in many other parts in the state, there are many small businesses where the building was built in the early 1900s. They didn't comply at the time. In Stockton, in my district, we've been bankrupt, so I mean, we've been barely hanging on for quite a while, yet we've had some attorneys file charges and get $4,000 per violation, and that's shut many, many businesses down in my district, and I know in other parts of the state too. I went through Manteca last night and looked through our downtown. It's been there forever. And there are so many businesses that are simply shut down. I think where the state's gone wrong is that we have imposed things on the private sector without first imposing them on ourselves and figuring out for ourselves what works and what doesn't work and what the balance is. And so I'd like to be able to support this bill. But I think it's important that we find that balance. And until we hold ourselves accountable, and we hold the state accountable to what we're asking the private sector to be accountable for, I think it's problematic. This Capitol building, at the first floor, you walk into the women's room, non-compliant. Non-compliant. If we held ourselves to the same standard, we would be fined thousands and thousands of dollars because this very building does not comply with what we ask the private sector to do.
May I respond? Or
no, let's save it for your closing. Senator Roth?
Maybe I'm confused about this bill, so let me ask a couple questions and see if I can clarify my confusion. As I read this bill applies to a commercial place of public amusement. Is that correct, ma'am? defined as an auditorium, a convention center, a cultural complex, an exhibition hall, an amusement park structure, a sports arena, a theater. So if it doesn't fit in that list, it's not covered, right?
Correct, with 1,000 visitors a day.
Okay.
So we're talking about a large facility.
Now, I, for one, think the state shouldn't exempt itself from the rules we
I
apply
would love to put the capital in there, too.
But some would consider this a place of public amusement, but.
Well, I think it might fall in the definition, actually. My purpose was not to exclude the state capitol, trust me, particularly with my testimony and my witnesses.
But we may, as a state, we may not run very many of these facilities as defined. So that's so you clarified that for me. And then in terms of what this bill does, is it accurate that it's going to apply to new construction after January 1, 2020?
Yes.
So presumably with new construction, you design in the changing requirements that the bill contemplates.
Well, the bill doesn't contemplate any requirements. That would all be done by the Division of Architects.
But whatever those are,
Yes.
would apply to new construction January 1, 2020, right?
Yes.
And two is to existing facilities that fit within this definition of commercial place of public amusement. The requirements to be set would apply to the renovation, any renovation that occurs after January 1, 2029.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So that's all this does? Right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions by committee? All right, please close.
Just for clarification to the opposition, in terms of the exemption of our state universities, it is my understanding they would not be exempt because they're already covered by Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, which is a federal law designed to ensure that anyone who's enrolled in any of our institutions of higher learning that receives any kind of federal funding would already have to be making accommodation for the person there. So I don't believe that is an exemption. Again, it doesn't impact any small business. It is these very specific large venues, over 1,000 people a day that come to enjoy the entertainment. I'd be very happy to include the state capitol. I think we should do that if it's not clearly spelled out. And again, it doesn't prescribe the method. It could be something that Disneyland currently has in their first aid station. They have a cot with a screen. It is a private area. Those are the two requirements, really, is that there be privacy for the dignity of our constituents, and secondly, that it be an elevated surface. So sometimes with this kind of bill, you can't win for trying. You try to be prescriptive, and they say the cost is too high, so you take that out, and then they say, well, we don't know what's going to happen, so you shouldn't do it. At the end of the day, we have a growing population of disabled constituents in each and every one of our districts. This touches all of us. And we have a changing culture that says we shouldn't have to stay at home and not be able to go out and enjoy what is being afforded everyone else within our society. So I really did try to craft this in a way that wasn't heavy-handed, that wasn't over-regulation, but that was really sensitive and meeting the needs of my constituency and yours as well. And with that, I would ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. We have a motion by Senator Roth. Secretary, call the roll.
The motion is to pass as amended and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Bell. Pinella.
Aye.
Pinella, aye. Allen. Bates. Gaines. Gaines, no. Galgiani. Leyva. Leyva, aye. McGuire. McGuire, aye. Mendoza. Mendoza, aye. Roth. Roth, aye. Wachowski.
5-1, have that bill on call.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.